Welcome to Creative Madness.
Hey YouTube Nation, it's the Homemade Game Guru. I'm just relaxing, spending time with some comic books in my collection, and this video is specifically for my fellow comic book collectors out there and comic book fans, for those of you who have thought about slabbing your comics. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to slab a comic, I'm referring to many of the grading services out there and which one to use, specifically the two behemoths of the industry, CGC and PGX. Now, I don't want to go into a whole long explanation about why people decide to slab their books or encase them in plastic. Pretty much it boils down to getting a specific grade for your books, either to just have in your collection or to sell. And I buy and sell comic books, and actually many of the comic books I'm about to show you in this video I'm going to be selling on my eBay site. The actual eBay store is listed on the screen, so if any of you are interested in purchasing some comic books, I'm selling a lot of my collection to actually go back to creating my own comic books. But enough about that. The information's there in the description area and on the screen if you want it. But what I want to discuss here is my experience using both these services. I've used both CGC and PGX. I sent different comic books to both companies, and I want to see which one would give the best value and the best grading, and I want to share what I think about both these services with you. Now, most people who know about grading know about CGC. They're the ones who pretty much created this industry in the early 2000s. They're the most well-known, or PGX is now the up-and-comer, and they're trying to gain more market share, and there's vast differences between their services and even how they encase your books. And what I find is that both services have their benefits and their drawbacks. And as a novice, as someone who's used these services for the first time ever, I want to share this with you. Now, the first thing you want to get to in the basics is the casing. Both of them use a hard plastic case in order to encapsulate your comic book when you send it to them. It is hard plastic, both of them. Most likely these plastic containers were made overseas. It doesn't stipulate where they came from, but they both have the same basic function: to protect your comic book and give the information about what issue it is, when it was made, the grade that they give it, and information on who drew it and all that, and of course what's wrong with it or any flaws. But the number one thing you have to get out of both of these things is that they're still fragile. They are strong, they are durable, but they're still fragile, especially when you're mailing them. I actually sold a CGC comic book and I shipped it out, and it was my error. I didn't pack it as tightly and with enough bubble wrap. This is the comic book that I shipped out, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to see with the glare, but it cracked right along the bottom edge there. Now, the guy I sold it to on eBay, he was cool about it. I gave him a refund, he sent it back to me, but I did put some bubble wrap on it, but it's still cracked. Because of course, when you put it into the mail system, the post office will put all types of stuff on top of it. But realize that even though it's encapsulated in these things, it doesn't mean that these things cannot get cracked. But they both pretty much protect the comic book. Like, even though this is cracked, the comic book is still in great condition, in exactly the same condition that it's in. And I have to send this back to CGC for them to repair it, and they have a service for that. Now, one of the big determinants of if you're going to go CGC versus PGX is pricing. It's not the only one, but it's a big one. And in this regard, I have to give the kudos to PGX. Because with CGC, their pricing, I'll give you some examples of some of their pricing. Their standard service is $60, and that's getting your books back in about 15 days. Where with PGX, their standard service is $20, and you'll get your books back within 20 days. Now, the big difference between what they're talking about days here is business days versus weekdays. Now, with CGC, the days that they're talking about, 15 days, are 15 business days. So Saturday and Sunday don't count. My experience with PGX is when they said 20 days, they actually mean 20 days, which includes Saturday and Sunday. And for an extra $5, so $25, you could get express service, so that means they'll get it graded in 8 days. And again, that's 8 full days, including weekends. Where with CGC, there's no such thing. Weekends do not count. So, and when I sent this out for their 15-day service, I actually got it back, which works out to about 3 weeks. It actually took a month before I got it back. And when they explain this to me is that they're just so inundated with orders that many times that they might fall behind. But what I'll explain later is that they have a process where you can keep track of everything, and that's something that I like with CGC. But when it comes to pricing, I have to give the edge to PGX that their prices are far more reasonable and their turnaround is more reasonable. But of course, this is an issue that leads some collectors and some people who want to slab their books to question PGX because their prices are lower. And I have a theory on this. Why I feel that PGX is less expensive than CGC is that, to be honest, CGC is the incumbent. They're the larger of the two companies, and they're the ones who pretty much spearheaded this whole encapsulation business. Now, I've read different reports that they control anywhere from 70 to 90% of the industry, so they are the juggernaut and most people go through them. As the upstart, PGX, which has been around for a few years still, has more wiggle room to have lower prices because their volume is not as high. Their volume is not as high not because they can't compete with these guys, but these guys have had a huge head start and they are the name that's synonymous with encapsulating and slabbing comic books, where these guys are still trying to build their client base and build their reputation. So for now, they could charge less and have a faster turnaround. And because of the volume that CGC is dealing with, many times the stated times that they give you about their turnaround is actually longer. And I've seen and spoken to people who have told me that they've used their services for, let's just say, the economy, which is $35, which is a good price for a CGC book, up to $300, but it's 40 days turnaround. So 40 business days turnaround, which is a very long time to wait for your book. You're waiting months for your book. Where with PGX, their economy service, you'll have your book back in, again, 20 days, in less than a month. So when it comes to speed and when it comes to price, I have to give it to PGX. One thing I like about CGC is that you set up an account. So why is it that I like the fact that CGC sets up an account and PGX does not? Even though once you do your first order, they will give you an account number. I like the account issue because once you send your books to CGC and you log in with your information, you could track the entire process of the grading of your book from beginning to end. So once they receive it, when it's being graded, the information and notes that the grader is making along the way, when your book is ready to be sent to you, when it actually is sent to you, and the tracking number. Everything is online with your account information, so it makes it easy to track what they're doing. But PGX, that wasn't the issue. You don't have to set up an account, and I did not see any fields on their website to set up an account. You could download their forms to send in, so both of them have downloadable forms you could send in with your books. You fill out the form, you send it in, but then after that, to find out if my books were received, even though I did track them, to find out what was going on with my books, I had to email. Now they had their email address, and to give Daniel respect, who is the CEO of the company, and he's the one always answering the emails, which in some ways is kind of weird that the CEO is the one answering the emails, but you know what, he answers within 24 hours each time I've sent a message, so I'm not waiting that long. But the fact is, I still had to email to find out, okay, were the books received? And then, okay, well, when am I getting them back? Can I get the tracking number? You know, all these things. And I said, he responded back quickly, within 24 hours, each and every time, within one day, many times within 12 hours, I got a response back. But, you know, with CGC, I don't have to email anyone. It's there updated every single step of making the book. And because their process is so much longer, that really is advantageous because, again, months will go by and you're wondering what's going on with my book, but they update it constantly so you know what's going on. They do give you an account number after your first order with PGX, but to this day, I really don't know what I'm supposed to do with it beyond just giving it to them when I email them and say, hey, you know, what's going on with my books. But either way, they both got their books back to me. And to make a note about shipping, I have to give them equal marks for shipping. That the shipping cost was pretty much the same for both when they sent them back to me, about $50. CGC sends through FedEx, PGX sent through Express, expedited, trackable US and Canada Post. Both got to me within the time frame they said they were going to get to me. Both were packed beautifully, packed tight, with plastic, shrink wrap, tons of bubble wrap. I'm very pleased with how both sent the books back to me. Now, the true meat and potatoes of getting your books graded comes down to the grade itself. Who is better at grading your comics? Now, CGC, again, has been in this industry longer, is the one who spearheaded it, And yes, they have a reputation for being very, very strict on how they grade your comic books. And because of the price and the time it takes for many people, that just solidifies that they are the best option. And no one's questioning that CGC knows what they're doing. Now, PGX, there's a lot of back and forth about what people think about their grading. Some people believe that because they're cheaper and because they grade faster, that means their grading is not at par with CGC. But again, I question that logic, because just because you're the newer entrant into the industry doesn't mean that you're worse at doing the job. And I believe that they're able to charge less and turn over more grading faster because they don't have the size of the market that this company has. So, and you read online, you hear all different types of reviews. The only true way to tell who grades better is to send one book to both companies. So you send one book to, let's just say, CGC first, have them grade it, send it back to you, open up the case, and then send the exact same book to PGX and have them grade it and send it back to you. Some people I've seen have done this. And again, most that I have read say that the grading is similar or off by just like 1 percentage point or half a percentage point in grading. Now, half a percentage point is not too bad. A full percentage point, like going from an 8 to a 9, is a big deal. But it goes either way. But in my experience so far, that from what I've read and talked to comic book store owners and whatnot, and especially talking to comic book store owners, a lot of comic book store owners are moving towards PGX. Not only because of the speed, but because they feel that they are accurate in how they grade comic books. So ultimately, what are my thoughts of these two companies? Well, with CGC, I love their account system. I love the fact that you sign up, you pay to get an account, but they give you a coupon which pretty much pays for the grading and 2 more books being graded, and you could track the whole process of what's happening with your books to when it shows up back at your door. And that having an account also gives you further discounts and whatnot. What I like about PGX is that I like their price and I like their speed. I like the fact that even though you have to email them, they get back to you within 24 hours. For CGC, I'm going to use this service for books that I have in my collection that I have no interest in selling. I just want to encapsulate them, make sure they stay in nice condition, and I'm just going to keep them, put them on my wall or in a display case and what have you. Because, yeah, comic books are made to be read, but I have specific issues that I do not want any fingerprints on them. I've already read them, and I have no interest in opening up these rare comic books again. But for books that I want to sell, it just makes more sense to use PGX because the price is better, the turnover is better. I don't want to sell a book and have to wait 4 to 5 months just to get my book back from CGC and pay $60. So meaning that whatever the value of the book is, I've add $60 to it in order for me to sell it and turn it over to make some kind of profit off of it, versus paying 25 bucks. And oh, actually something I didn't even mention before. With CGC, many of their tiers are based on the value of the book. So, for instance, for their standard service, which is the 15 business days, which costs $60, your book could be worth up to $1,000. However, for their economy service, which is $35 and could take up to 40 days, your book could only be worth up to $300. If it goes above that, then there's extra fees you have to pay. So you gotta be careful about that. With PGX, from what I've seen so far, it's up to $1,000 for pretty much all their services. Their services are based on when the book came out. So their modern service is only $13, so that's any book published after 1978. And then your standard books are Golden Age, Silver Age, any of those books, and you're only paying 20 bucks for that. So, you know what? I'm gonna give PGX its due and its chance, and I think both companies have their pros and cons. And this is my review on CGC and PGX. You know, let me know what you guys think. Again, this is just my opinion. I know some people are going to blow their lids like, oh my god, you're wrong about their grading or service, but this is my experience using both services at the same time. But please let me know what you think about using these great comic book services. And as I said before, if you're interested in buying any of these books, I'm putting them up on eBay. I do sell comic books on eBay because I want to actually come up with my own comic book series, and I'm blessed to have many of these books. So thanks for watching, guys, and I know grading is not for everyone. For many people, it's just a good old bag and board is good enough. And for many books that I have in my collection, it's the same way. But, you know, I don't mind this kind of service for those who are interested in it. And I said, for either to sell them at a premium or to just keep them in your collection, whatever it is, it's up to you. It's your comic books. You decide what to do with them. All right, so Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and more cardboard creative madness, comic book geekiness, all the good stuff is coming in the weeks and months ahead. So I'm the Homemade Game Guru. Take care, guys. All the best.